I didn't watch Star Trek Discovery for the longest time because I was worried it was going to be woke. And you know what? I'm a dickhead. I was totally wrong. Let's talk about it. Hi guys, it's me. I want to make a quick video about Star Trek Discovery. Because I made a video about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Love that show. Absolutely adore it. I think it is perfect. Star Trek Discovery, though, Strange New Worlds wouldn't have existed without Star Trek Discovery. And Star Trek Discovery is a really powerful, good show. But I can also understand why Star Trek fans kind of resistant against it. And I think I get a little uncomfortable thinking about my own hesitancy in jumping into watching this show. So let's just talk about that a little. What is Star Trek Discovery? Well, you know, we Star Trek fans hadn't had a lot going on since the movies came out. There weren't really any new Star Trek shows. Then they announced they were going to have the show Star Trek Discovery. And I was kind of a bit over it, I have to admit. I watched the 3 movies with Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto and stuff like that. The first movie I was like, okay, whatever. It was enjoyable to see like John Cho be an action hero, but it just didn't do it for me. Because they had to rewrite so much of the Star Trek lore. And I'm like, I don't want you to rewrite Star Trek lore, I want new Star Trek lore. This is what Star Wars has done so well, it's like kept the lore. The second film, I was just like, oh god, yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch's Khan, blah, blah. Really did not enjoy that one. Third movie, Beyond, that was cracking. I really liked that one. I was like, oh wow, you have finally found your footing. And then of course the movie series got cancelled. So there we go. We were in a desert in terms of Star Trek. And interestingly enough, for me, the fix that I would get would be watching YouTube series where fans would get together and make original series type episodes and things. John Broughton, JB Bespoke, has this wonderful show called Farragut, the USS Farragut. He's done like 60s era shows and the animated shows, and he's now doing the movie era. And that's fun because, as I've always said, Star Trek is not complex to get right. You need a ship, you need a crew of strong personalities and strong characters, and then you throw weird situations for them to deal with. And it's ironic that the fans, like John Broughton, were able to do that so much more effectively than Paramount was. And that sort of sin was exemplified most with Picard, where you have this incredible opportunity to bring back the actors from my youth. I was a huge fan of Star Trek The Next Generation. I would go to Alton and rent it on VHS. Love Patrick Stewart, love the cast of that. And they got it so wrong that I couldn't even continue watching the series, which just broke my heart. But then Discovery came along and it kind of changed everything. I was feeling very cynical about Star Trek, and Discovery came along, and I was immediately like, oh god, I'm not going to like this one, am I? Because, you know, you had Star Trek Discovery, but the main character wasn't the captain of the ship. And then I was watching the articles about it, and I was like, oh, they reinvented the Klingons. And I was like, this is just going to be like the first Star Trek movie, isn't it? Where they take everything that we know and love and is sacred to us Star Trek fans, and they reinvent it. And so I didn't watch Star Trek Discovery for, I think it's up to season 4 now, so I didn't start watching it until this year, I think. And in some ways, I wish that I had. Because when I eventually sat down and started watching it, I was blown away at how engaging it was. And I'm going to have to get my phone and look up the name of the young lady who plays the main character, Michael Burnham. But I had been hesitant about watching this show because it wasn't like the Star Trek that I was expecting. And, you know, Sonequa Martin Green, that's it. She played a character called Michael Burnham, and I was just like, oh, her name's Michael. Isn't that amazing? Her name's Michael, and Michael's a boy's name. Oh, that's so clever and woke. And like this whole idea of it being woke had put me off the show. And I think I'm not alone in that. And then there are a lot of people who started watching it who also didn't enjoy the show because it wasn't what they expected. And that's where I kind of differ from them. I finally gave Star Trek Discovery a chance, and while I was cleaning up the house, I put it on. And I discovered that Star Trek Discovery is actually really good. It's not Star Trek though. I think that's the big thing that people need to realise, is Star Trek Discovery isn't traditional Star Trek. Traditional Star Trek is The Next Generation, or Prodigy, or Strange New Worlds, where you have a ship and a crew, and every single episode, you know, the different members of the crew have to face some weird situation, and their character kind of like develops the story arc. Whereas Star Trek Discovery is not that. Star Trek Discovery shouldn't be called Star Trek Discovery. It should be called the Michael Burnham, a Star Trek story. Because Star Trek Discovery is about Michael Burnham, this young lady who was the number one of the ship, who got disgraced when things went wrong, and then she had to redeem herself. And it's about Michael Burnham all the way through. A lot of people's criticism of Star Trek Discovery is that she's a Mary Sue. And a Mary Sue is a literary character where you get an established universe like the Star Trek universe, and then a fan fiction author creates a character who's kind of like themselves, an idealized version of themselves, and you know, they're larger than life and better than life and things. And to a certain extent, Michael Burnham comes across as that. It's like Michael Burnham's the one who started the war with the Klingons. She's the one who ended the war with the Klingons. She's the one who had to save the universe through time travel. Everything always comes down to her. The entire Star Trek Discovery world revolves around Michael Burnham. And so you just have to understand that that is a very different type of story to what you're used to with Star Trek, but it's okay. You just have to accept that. It's a different type of story. And the kind of fan fiction, that kind of, it's all, I would say, instead of fan fiction, I call it like young adult stuff. If you think of like Twilight and a lot of those books in which you have a female protagonist who's kind of like too good to be true, but at the same time blank enough that you can read it and put yourself in her shoes. It's kind of like that. It's all about Michael Burnham, and everything revolves around Michael Burnham. And if you can just accept that and enjoy the ride, you start to have a really good time. And I say that because the first season of Star Trek Discovery, where you have Michael being disgraced because of her trying to do the right thing, and it's triggered this war, to the end where she is redeemed and welcomed back to Discovery, that is a really satisfying character arc, and I enjoyed that. And then in the second season, where they have this whole time travel thing going along, and you bring in Captain Pike from the Enterprise, again, you start off very, very early in that and realize that Michael Burnham is, of course, everything revolves around her. She's the only one who can do this. It's her parents involved. She's the center of the universe. But if you watch the entire season, again, it ends with a really, really satisfying conclusion, because it's got a whole season-wide arc. This is not how Star Trek is traditionally told. Star Trek is traditionally told in like an episodic format, where every episode is self-contained. Star Trek Discovery, not so much. If you watch a random episode of Star Trek Discovery, you're not going to be able to understand what's going on because you missed so much before. Whereas if you watch a new episode of Strange New Worlds, or watch an episode of Deep Space Nine or TNG or something like that, you can enjoy the episode for what the episode represents. So it's a different type of storytelling. And also, the writers were not afraid to mess around with the things that are sacred to us. So I watched it and I'm like, wait a second, what the hell is up with these Klingons? They don't have hair. We like Klingons. You know, Klingons to us are like our Viking battle brothers. And in Deep Space Nine, they very much got humanized as like our comrades, and you respected them. And the Klingons in Star Trek Discovery are weird and alien and disquieting. And at first I didn't like that, but as we watched it more, I was kind of like, these guys are actually genuinely scary and antagonistic, and their alienness comes across very, very strongly in that first season, which works really, really well. You're actually scared of them. If we had, you know, Next Generation style Klingons, or the Deep Space Nine Klingons with like Gowron and Martok and stuff like that, you wouldn't be scared of them. You wouldn't see them as necessarily enemies, because the Klingons were like culturally different, but we could find a middle ground. Whereas in Discovery, these Klingons are just weird and alien and frightening and intimidating, and there's something very, very creepy going on. And that works, actually. If you just let go of all your prejudices and watch it and enjoy it, it actually works really, really well. And then in season 2, when you have the Klingons actually having their hair back and stuff like that, they become more like the Klingons we know. And I think it kind of like redeems the whole thing with them being very different. Again, it's my prejudices. I kind of like maybe not want to watch the show because it was so different to the Star Trek that I was expecting. And yet, at the same time, now I can understand why they made those changes. And I think they work. And more so than that, in season 2, where they kind of like make the Klingons more Klingon-y again, I think it works really well because that weirdness and that alienness and the way they sort of like frightened you for the first time. Klingons are frightening again. And then they bring it back to the Klingons you know, kind of makes that satisfying. There's the whole conceit of Michael Burnham being Spock's brother. That's a classic Mary Sue thing, because of course Mary Sue, the entire universe revolves around the Mary Sue character, and it was like a big conceit to have her as Spock's brother. But in season 2, when they wrap that up and they send the Discovery into the far future and everyone in Starfleet can never speak of it again, that actually is a satisfying way to have this wild, crazy, stupid thing actually make sense in the canon of Star Trek that we know. And the characters themselves in Discovery, even though Michael Burnham is always the focus of attention, they're great. And first, if we're talking about Sonequa Martin Green, you know, she got saddled with a character who could come across as quite unlikable, and a lot of people resent because she's the classic Mary Sue, and some of the writing has made that quite difficult for her because, you know, she's playing a character who's the center of all this stuff going on. But she is a really, really good actress. If you actually watch Star Trek Discovery with like a discerning eye, there are certain scenes. There's one scene where she gets Captain Georgiou's telescope back, and she opens up the box, and the camera like literally just stares at Sonequa Martin Green's face for about 30 seconds, and she has to emote opening this box up, seeing something from her past, dealing with that. And in the same time, her character was raised half Vulcan, yet is a very passionate human being. So she has to do all of this acting non-verbally, and she nails it. And actually, if you watch all of Star Trek Discovery, you can see the acting that she's done is brilliant. She manages to be this kind of like standoffish Vulcan type character. She's very much like the cockhead, the raised eyebrow in a Spock-like way, yet at the same time be human and passionate. It's an incredibly difficult role to pull off, and I think Sonequa Martin Green just does a wonderful, wonderful job at it. Other character, Saru, Commander Saru, ends up becoming the captain. What an incredible character he is as well. Because he comes from a pacifist society. Anxiety and fear rule his life and rule his decision-making process. One of the few episodes that was really kind of like episodic old Star Trek style was when he finds out more about his racist background and kind of evolves, you know, literally. And you start to see this character, Commander Saru, become a very, very effective leader in his own right. And I respected that, and he had character growth. It was really, really strong. Tilly is another character. I can't remember the actress who plays her, but when I first saw her, I was like, oh yeah, we get the insecure ginger girl, it's fine. But she ends up becoming very, very strong and likable, and she rises to her strengths and she overcomes her weaknesses. I like that a lot. There's a great Stamos, the character who is in charge of like this spore drive thing. He has a very, very real, believable same-sex relationship. And the nice thing is we exist in a time now where no one blinks an eye at same-sex relationships, and Star Trek was always very progressive and kind of like tried to push things like that. Yet in this way it doesn't feel pushed. He has a romantic relationship that perhaps should seem controversial because it's on mainstream TV, but it doesn't. It seems believable. I've rooted for it, felt for him. All of the characters really, you like and you enjoy watching. If you can get over your prejudices that this isn't the Star Trek that you know and love, it becomes a really, really nice, super long form storytelling exercise that ends very, very satisfactorily. And I'm watching season 3 now, where they go into the far future and they meet the Federation there, and I'm like, I'm invested. I think that's the thing that really got me. Like, the wonderful thing about Star Trek has always been that you get invested in these characters and in these situations. And Star Trek Discovery might have messed around with the formula of what I know of as Trek, but it did manage to make me be invested in the characters and invested in the show, and I'm really, really enjoying it. The best part of it, though, has to be the fact that they use Star Trek Discovery as a very soft way of launching Strange New Worlds, which is the most exciting thing for Trek fans since, I don't know, since, for me, First Contact, the movie. That movie was great. And I don't think that's probably the most excited I've been about Star Trek for years. And then Strange New Worlds came along and I was just like, brilliant. And it wouldn't have happened without Discovery. And Discovery's not very Star Trek-like way of telling stories, very, very long form and sort of an arc that goes series-wide. That worked really well in developing the character of Christopher Pike. So we know him when he becomes captain of the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds. It's just great. It's really, really great, and I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't give Star Trek Discovery the break that I should have done as soon as it came out, because I missed out. And I'm really enjoying it now, and I'm really enjoying wherever the show is going to go next. Anyway, that's all I have to say, and I'll be back with another video very soon. Bye. I'm Roland Hume. I've sold 67,000 copies of my books. If you want to find out how I did it, I've got the link right here you can click. And otherwise, don't forget to subscribe. I've got more videos coming soon. Thank you.